After a 2-week break from the forum, it is back. We are back. Welcome to the Forest Forum. Evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to the Forest Forum, where we've got all kinds of debates going to be happening today, from Morgan Gibbs-White to the stuff behind the scenes to can Forest score goals? Loads to talk about. Hope you guys are doing well. Get your comments in the chat, get your hellos in. But before we start, I have to tell you guys that this video today is sponsored by Football Prizes. So if you want to get this signed framed shirt of Matt Sells, look at the frame. It's beautiful. It's got a picture of him, 26. Obviously, Nikki won't be going for this. Insta win of Nuno with ticket 100, and the second kit with ticket 225. Just scan the QR code here, or exclamation mark prize in the chat, or click the link as well. Right, we are good to go. We got Lemmy in the house. How you doing, Lemmy?
I'm all good, mate. How are you?
Tired but good. I was playing FIFA, I'm not gonna lie, and I've got no pack luck. If your pack luck's better than mine, let me know in the comments. Rob, arms folded. You
yeah,
right,
I'm
mate?
fine. I've been away.
How was your weekend?
Oh well, I went to Milan and I went to the Nottingham Forest bar, which is a real thing that's there. But unfortunately, the only thing that's Forest about it is the sign on the outside. I was expecting to go in and see a picture of Clough. Absolutely nothing inside relevant to our football club, but it was at midnight, so I wasn't going to have it out with them because I would have got thrown out.
Okay, a bit like your conversations, and absolutely nothing relevant to Forest. But sorry, I couldn't resist. And we got Carlos. You guys have started calling Jimmy, some of you in the chat. Carlos, how you doing, bud?
I am very well, thank you. Maybe a little bit stressed. Got a big move tomorrow, moving house. So maybe this was a bit of a strange decision to come on here tonight with all that going on. But, you know, it is what it is.
When you said big move, I thought you were like moving to Real Madrid or something. You know?
I'm moving to Forest Focus podcast. That's what it is.
That's a big going up in the world in class, mate. In class. And you streaming after this as well?
Yes, I will be streaming on Twitch, and I'm going to stream on YouTube as well tonight.
Cool. So we will push you guys over to Carlos' stream so you can go and take the mick out of him
while he's playing Call of Duty.
Multi-streaming. So make sure you do that. And you can follow him on Twitch. His link is just there, twitch.tv/knockedtv, knocked one out TV. All right, let's get started.
It's not that kind of stream. Not only fans.
We're going to kick it off with Lemmy. For those of you who are new to this format, that each panelist will get up to 5 minutes uninterrupted to say their piece on the topic of their choice, obviously to do with Forest, and then it will go to cross-examination with the other two panelists, and then we will do that twice over, and then we will review and look ahead to the Chelsea game and have a look at what the boys have put together for their teams. So we're going to kick it off with the Morgan Gibbs-White topic, and that's going to be done by our boy, not Rob, no, it'll be done by Lemmy. God, if Rob kicked us off. And Lemmy, your time starts whenever you want, and you're about to talk about Morgan Gibbs-White and how key is he to Forest. All yours, bud.
Thank you. Yes, so I feel like this is probably a good topic, especially on England squad announcement day, and we see that our boy's back in the England squad again. Hopefully we'll get to see more than 15 minutes out of him, but it's still surreal seeing a Nottingham Forest player being asked to call up to represent our nation. It's absolutely brilliant. Yes, how key is Morgan Gibbs-White? I believe that the game at the weekend kind of really did emphasize how crucial he is, not just for attacking creation and the options that he provides us, but also just working around the pitch and dominating the midfield. He's not necessarily known as someone who's going to be able to go in and put tackles in, but when he wasn't there, like you saw on the Grumpy Old Red stream over the weekend, there was just nobody that was ever occupying the middle of the park, and that is his playground, really. He will pick the ball up, he will run all the way back, he'll go in and make tackles, and then he'll happily pick the ball up, turn around, and always look forwards to make passes, which is something that was crucially missing throughout the weekend game where he wasn't available. I've done a little bit of preparation for this, not quite as much as Crypto does, where he asked ChatGPT to write him a full 5-minute eulogy about Chris Wood. But I did have a look. I was just one of the things I was trying to work out was, how do Forest play when Morgan Gibbs-White isn't part of the Forest team? And I had to kind of look through all 3 seasons that he's basically represented for us, because he came in for the Everton game, which was what, game week 3, game week 4 of our first season back. And from then till now, it was basically absolutely a moot point of trying to do that comparison, because since then he's only missed 4, or not started in 4 of our Premier League games throughout basically 3 campaigns, which was kind of stunning to me, especially when we've been absolutely riddled with injuries throughout, from all the way from the top basically back to centre backs and full backs. So to have a player who's basically been so reliable and always been available really did emphasize the point of, right, we've got someone who's probably our best player. I will always make that argument if he's our best attacking player, definitely. And he's always fit and available. He's never injured. That is what you need to be able to start building a team where you want to be able to put out your best 11. I remember watching the Forest game with my dad, and he said back in the day where he used to watch Forest a lot under the Cloughy era, Cloughy would just pick his favourite 11. He'd pick the best 11. It didn't matter who he was playing against. I think Morgan Gibbs-White will always be number 2, at least number 2, number 3 on the team sheet for being picked in that squad. He is absolutely pivotal for not necessarily scoring goals, as we've seen. He's not got the best goal shooting record, and his shooting boots are still in the post. And doesn't necessarily get a lot of assists either, because he's playing in the middle of the park. But the way that he gets the ball, and you always rely on him to turn around and find a key pass, and it might not necessarily be the pass that gets the assist, but he is always in every single highlight reel that you watch of Forest where we're making an attack. I would willingly bet about 75 to 80% of the time he has been involved in some way, shape or form of winning the ball back, doing something to get around a player, making a 1-2, making a pass through behind the back line, or trying to take on a defender. So when we do miss him, like we were last week, and we just had 1 shot on target all game, yes, Morgan Gibbs-White isn't necessarily going to be taking those shots on target, but he facilitates other players, and they rely on him to be able to get their options out. So I just feel, is he key for how we want to play? Yes. Do we want to try and score more goals? Absolutely, because although our defensive record has significantly improved this season, we've only let in 5 goals from 6 games. We've only scored a maximum of 1 goal a game. So I feel like we have to try and look to always be creating. And I don't think I'd look at anyone else to try and create a chance and score a goal, or at least create a chance to score a goal, than Morgan Gibbs-White. And that's shown in the stats as well. If you kind of look at the Twitter pages, one of my favorite ones at the moment, not a plug, but the other 14, which really helps you look at teams outside of the big 6. In terms of chances created, Morgan Gibbs-White's number 3 on that list, behind 2 Newcastle players. In terms of shots taken for Forest, he's tied with Chris Wood. In terms of shots on goal, he's just behind him. So yes, I do believe that Morgan Gibbs-White is absolutely crucial for how Forest are going to be able to progress and move up the ladder in the Premier League. And that is my 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Senor Lemmy. Chat, there is a poll out there. Do you think Morgan Gibbs-White is key to Forest? Yes, he should be the first name on the team sheet. No, we can survive without him, or you're on the fence. There's not enough evidence to prove it either way. Crypto with the £2 says, ChatGPT says, shut up, Lemmy. Oh, he didn't say the Lemmy bit, but bang on time. He hits 5 minutes. Stone Roses says, vote Lemmy. Vote Lemmy indeed. All right, boys, I want to open up this for a bit of cross-examination. Do you agree with what Lemmy's saying? Is Morgan Gibbs-White pivotal for Forest?
Shall I go first? No, Carl, go first.
I'll go first. I agree with what Lemmy's saying. I think he is pivotal to Forest. I don't think last Saturday was a good example of proving that, though, because we played a system. We played like a 4-4-2, which would he shine in that kind of formation? He shines as a 10, doesn't he? Like he creates a chance as a 10. We didn't play the usual formation, so we didn't even try someone like Anderson, who's supposed to be a 10, in what would be Morgan Gibbs-White position, or even Jota. I know there's a debate whether Jota was ever a number 10, but I think he could probably have a go at the 10 position. But we decided to play a weird 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2 kind of setup, which really didn't work. So I agree with what Lemmy's saying. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is pivotal. I do think he needs to improve when it comes to actually scoring goals. He doesn't score enough. His shots at times are terrible. And he also needs to sort his mentality out, because that tackle he did in the Brighton game where he got sent off was stupid and reckless, especially when he's on a yellow card at that stage of the game as well. So, yeah, I agree with Lemmy, but I don't think we saw how we could operate without him properly, i.e. the same formation and the same shape that Morgan Gibbs-White gets to play in.
Yeah.
I agree, but before I bring Rob in, Andy's saying, and he's asking you, Lemmy. So, Lemmy, are you saying we lost because Morgan Gibbs-White was banned?
No. And I kind of did allude to that on the Grumpy Old Reds stream that we did at the weekend, where I wasn't completely against the formation change that we made. I do just think that the way that we played was not trying to create chances. It was just shutting out, not giving Fulham a chance to score in open play, which they wouldn't have done. I think we could still be playing now and they wouldn't have scored from open play. It was a case of trying to bring on the pacey wingers once they'd tired out Fulham and trying to look for a break, which we did get, or almost get a couple of times. So I wouldn't say that the loss was because Morgan Gibbs-White was missing. It was more a fact of, I feel Nuno felt like we couldn't play a 4-2-3-1 because we are missing arguably his starting 6, 8 and 10 in that game. So if you're going to play, if I do agree, bringing Anderson into that 10 probably would have been a good option, but then I'd say he's been probably one of our best 8s. So then you've got to bring someone else to then fill up that role. So it then felt like you're just making a lot of changes to the system just so you can fill out a 1-game ban for Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah, Rob, what are you saying? Because I know your take on Morgan's a bit different in terms of position, for example.
Well, it has been, but I went off the idea of playing him deeper after the Brighton game when he did those 2 reckless tackles. The first one, he climbed over the guy from behind, and it was like Ryan Yates on a really bad day. So I don't know. I'd rather have him further forward. But I think Carl said most of what I was going to say. I'm disappointed that against the Fulham game, we didn't just stick to our usual system and simply swap him out for somebody else to do the number 10 role exactly as he would do it. Now, the obvious candidate would be Anderson, but you've potentially got Sousa or Jota that could be looked at in that position. I think with Sousa and Jota, they're both at an early enough stage in their career that you can't sort of say that, oh, he is a left winger or he is a right winger or he is a striker. At that age, those players are still finding their best position.
They're mid-20s, Rob.
No, I still don't. Look, I think that up until the mid-20s, you still haven't seen quite what people can do. Now, I think that we have to acknowledge that Morgan Gibbs-White is involved in most of our goals that we've scored this season. I mean, the only one that he had absolutely nothing to do with was the corner that Chris Wood scored, the header against Wolves. If you look at all the others, he's involved, even if he's 3 or 4 touches behind the final assist. And of course, the Southampton one, he did in fact score himself. But I still don't think that we should overlook the fact that by his own standards, I don't think he's made a particularly good start to the season. He's not produced his best work and what he's capable of in the first 6 games of this season. He's been giving the ball away a lot. His tackling's been reckless and his shooting's been off target. Now, it may well be that a 60% of a Morgan Gibbs-White is still better than the next best option. But I don't like being so reliant on one player, because the fact is he could get injured, he could get sold. What is our long-term succession plan for Gibbs-White? So, ultimately, I love him as a player. He possibly is our most talented player. For me, it's a toss-up between him and Murillo. But I think we've made ourselves so dependent on him that when he's not available, we haven't even tried to get anyone to do his role. And I think that was a mistake.
To counter that, he has created the most amount of chances, or in the top 3 for chance creation. Could you say the conversion's not been good enough?
Oh, the conversion definitely not been good enough. In fact, looking at the highlights of that Fulham game, I see that Fulham basically didn't have an attack other than the penalty, but they were just sort of our 4 or 5 best attacks were all just shots way off target. So we have got a problem with finishing at the moment, but he has got a serious problem with finishing. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, and Carl, would you agree on his finishing? Because it is frustrating.
Finishing is terrible. I think we've all said that, haven't we? In the past, you'd expect him really to be scoring like 8 to 10 goals a season for someone of his. Well, the player we want him to be should be scoring 8 to 10 goals a season and similar assists as well. He does not score enough, and that's probably going to stop him from getting starts for England, because he's well behind some big players, isn't he, for England in the number 10.
Has he been called up?
I think he got called up, didn't he?
He's now an England regular.
Regular,
yeah. But he's not going to get in the team, is he? He's not going to get in front of Bellingham.
No,
Bellingham plays a 10, doesn't he?
Bellingham, you've got Foden, you got Palmer.
Yeah,
there's a big list in front of him. I still think I like him as an 8. I know you lot saying he was reckless in the challenges, but
I like him as an 8, but he needs to sort his head out when it comes to tackling. Sometimes, like you can't do that on a yellow card. You can't.
Well, maybe that experience is enough for him to learn, and he won't do that again.
Yeah,
you can't write someone off from that, but it wasn't easy on the eye.
But it's interesting. Like, what is Anderson been brought in as? Because he's not a winger, is he? Like, I don't see him as a winger. And is he an 8 or is he a 10? What have we actually brought him in as?
Well, he didn't
trust him enough to play him as a 10. And he's not a winger, in my opinion. So is he an 8?
I don't know, but he's played every game.
We've all raved about him, but what has he actually produced?
Well, I think he's a natural 8. He did play left wing at Newcastle, but he wants to play as a 10. So I think on that one, where Rob said they're still too young to find out, you could chuck that still at Anderson at his age. I think mid-20s is long gone. But I don't know. I think a lot of people wanted to see him as a 10. I'm sure he'd have been disappointed that he didn't get to play against Fulham as the 10. But it's
a big statement from Nuno for not trusting him in the 10.
Yeah. But would you have moved him from the 8 where he's done so well? That's the other side of the argument.
To be honest, I wouldn't. I would have kept him as the 8 and played Jota as the 10. I know there is this argument that Jota has only played 1 or 2 times in the 10 previously, but I would have personally kept with the 4-2-3-1 and gone with Jota in the 10. I think even Dominguez can play a 10, can't he?
He can, yeah. If you wanted like a high pressing 10, more so to win the ball higher up, you can put Dominguez in there as well.
Because Nuno doesn't seem to trust. He doesn't seem to trust Dominguez as in the 2 in the middle, and he plays him on the wing. He doesn't seem to trust him as a 10. He plays him as like a left or right winger. It's just weird.
Dominguez is the one that frustrates me the most. And he seems to always play him out of position, and he's just one of those ones who I feel is just happy to be on the pitch when he gets his chance.
It is very sad with Dominguez. He just hasn't had a run, has he? And there wasn't even talk about him leaving.
Yeah, there was links to him to Turkey, wasn't there, in the summer? So the chat has voted. 71% agree with Lemmy. Yes, he should be the first name on the team sheet. 12% say no, we can survive without him. And 17% are saying they're on the fence, not enough evidence seen on the pitch. So let me cracking little opening, what do you call it? Rendition? I don't know what the right word is. Just a quick reminder, guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. And let's move on to our second topic, which is, who have I got next on my list here?
Me
It's
again.
you, Carlos.
Oh,
It's you.
go for me. Okay.
It's you. And the title of this is Stop Blaming VAR.
Yeah.
What was yours, bud?
So I don't know if this is going to go on for 5 minutes, but we'll see. Okay, so this is a hole we fell into last season, where and obviously it was very well documented about us blaming VAR and the club making tweets that caused controversy and stuff like that. So we seemed to become a bit of a victim club last season when it came to officials and VAR. And I'm just worried that after Saturday, with what happened with Fulham, that we're going to go down that road again and become that victim club. And we kind of deflect away from the real reasons why we're losing games and using VAR as kind of like the scapegoat for the losses. So let me delve into this more. So, see, VAR, I am actually for VAR. I think it is a useful tool. And when it comes to offsides, it doesn't really make many mistakes anymore. And we're going to get the semi-automated system coming in, which should eradicate all issues with offsides. The biggest problem with VAR is when it comes to penalties involving handballs and involving fouls. So, like at the weekend, most people think the Elanga incident was a penalty, but on the day, the referee didn't think it was, which is fair enough because in real time, it looked like he probably made a bit of a meal of it. But when it was slowed down, you could see he clearly had his leg swept away. VAR looked at it, didn't give it. So that's the biggest part. Inconsistencies. In another game, the same incident would be given as a penalty. And the problem is, it's because it's subjective. It's a human looking at it. There's not an automated tool that gives a decision, and that's the problem with VAR. So we know VAR isn't perfect, but it stops a lot of problems happening in games more than. So, for example, like if you look at something on Amazon, you see all the bad reviews, but that product might have been bought 5,000 times, but you see 20 bad reviews. That's not actually many, in the big scheme of things. That's only a small amount of issues, and that's what the thing is with VAR. It does a lot of good, but we all focus on the bad, which is maybe one or two incidents every few games. So the problem we've got at the moment is, if you look at our results this season, we're only scoring 1 goal a game. So if you're only scoring 1 goal a game, I know there was 2 against Brighton, but out of 7, 6 was only one goal. If you're only scoring 1 goal a game, you're allowing VAR or the officials to actually have an impact on the game. So obviously, it's pretty obvious what we need to do is manage games better, i.e., at home against teams like Fulham. We shouldn't be set it up to be passive, to be defensive, and to try and catch them on the break, play narrow, bring a couple of wingers on the 60th minute, because all it takes is VAR to step in and give a dodgy penalty, and you're 1-0 down, your plan's ruined, and you're throwing everybody on to try and rectify the situation. So, a way of stopping this would be actually Nuno being more accountable for what he's doing, the way he's setting it up, the tactics that we're having for home games. We shouldn't be playing a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1. We should be playing with our best players on the pitch in a 4-2-3-1 with Callum Hudson-Odoi on the pitch, Elanga or Jota, trying to hit them with pace, not just playing passively and trying to sneak a 1-0. Because if you're doing that, you're just opening yourself up for VAR to come in as a factor of the game. And so that's why we need to stop blaming VAR, because the top teams, you don't hear Man City complaining about VAR like we do, because Man City are beating teams 2-3, 4-0. So they can have a bad decision against them. It doesn't matter. The problem we have, we're only scoring 1 goal. We're only getting narrow victories. It's such a fine margin. All it takes is one subjective decision from a ref, and we a 1-0 win turns into a 1-1 draw, or we end up losing 2-1 because of 2 bad decisions. Also, I think as a club, we need to stop moaning about it all the time, because we become that fan base that is always moaning about VAR. Referees are humans. They know when clubs are slagging them off. They know, and it will influence them. They may not admit it, but when it comes to the next time that referee is involved in a Forest game, it will be psychological. It will be in their head, and it could be a factor. When I'm not saying referees are corrupt or VAR is corrupt, but it could become a factor when we play with that referee again. He knows that the club have slagged him off. He's going to be like, well, bit of payback. So I think that's all I want to say on it. I just think we're close to becoming that victim club that we became last season. So we need to stop looking at blaming VAR, and we need to look more at how we set up in games and how we manage games and how we approach games. And that should be a factor, and take away VAR and the officials having an effect on our results. So that's it.
Okay, so Carlos saying, stop blaming VAR, basically start scoring more goals. And I've seen quite a lot of you in the chat saying, we need a striker. On the poll at the moment, get your votes in. Do Forest blame VAR too much? Yes, 50% of you are saying yes, just win it on the pitch. 30% are saying no, the refs hate us. And on the fence, 20%, they're not quite so sure. Just before I open it up to the panel, massive shout out to the battle. Happy 1-year anniversary. Thank you so much for the 12 months. You absolute legend. And Chris with the £2 saying, another terrible, terrible take, Carlos. So he's saying we need to blame VAR more and not score as much, as I'm assuming you're saying that. Thank you so much for the £2, Chris. Okay, so boys on the panel, what are you saying to that? Are we becoming a bit of a whiny club? Are we complaining too much about VAR? And should we be getting it done on the pitch? Because that penalty was in the 50-odd minute. I mean, we still had plenty of time to rectify it, didn't we? So Lemmy, kick us off on it.
I was about to say, does Rob want to kick off? Because I could go on about this for a fair while, so I feel like Rob might cover a lot of my points.
All right, I'll jump in. Thank you very much. So I'm actually glad you brought this one up, Cole, because I was thinking exactly the same thing myself. I really don't want to go back to where we were last season, whining about VAR after every game. That said, there was definitely some real bullshit from VAR last season, not least the Everton game with the 3 penalties. So, both things can be true. In terms of Man City not moaning, by the way, I think they complained quite a lot when Rodri got sent off against us last season. So I don't think they're exempt from having a whine. And we've got to remember, you remember the old days when Man United were dominant. Ferguson completely intimidated every referee. So, the idea that it's just us complaining, there's a long history of it, and there's a lot of psychology involved. The only thing I would agree is that it's a negative feedback loop. So if we become known for complaining, it doesn't make them treat us any kinder, I feel. And, so it's like we brought in Clattenburg to try and psych them out on this whole point. And in the long run, it probably made them victimize us just that little bit more. So I'd love to shut up about it, because it's going to take us back to a dark place. I don't want to go back to where we were last season. So if we get some rough decisions, let's just take it on the chin and move on. Last thing, there are still a lot of problems with VAR, like the stupid thing about they can't get involved in reviewing yellow cards. So that's cost us Bolly and Gibbs-White sendings off.
You said you thought he was reckless. Which one is it?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that he won the ball. Oh God, let's not go back there. If VAR had been consulted and not just the 4th official, if VAR had been consulted, VAR would have come in and said, no, he won the ball. So so you've got an inconsistency there where the fourth official is getting involved, but VAR isn't.
Well, the ref said he won the ball. All
Yeah,
right, let's not go down that road.
Anyway, so there's still a lot of problems with VAR, but I totally agree with the sentiment that Carl's expressed, which is like, let's move away from complaining. You know, we're 9th or 10th in the table. We're not fighting for our lives. Don't go back there. Don't go back to that sort of self-own that we had last season.
Joe, do you agree? I think we get dealt a hard hand. If I'm being, I know what they're saying. But
Yeah.
the point Rob made about Fergie used to complain after a match on the most nothing decision, and then that ref the next game wouldn't dare give it against them. Do you feel there's a little bit of that in the mindset of what Forest are trying to do, is to put that external pressure on the refs?
I do agree with what both Robert and Carlos are saying, where I don't want to end up where we were last season, where we're making public tweets and we're just making ourselves look to be sorry because we've lost. I don't want to blame the reason that we've lost a game purely on VAR. However, I do feel like we have to still be putting a firm stance on it, because it is broken the way that it works at the moment. It is just the consistency, like Laurie's been saying, it is just not there. And to have that at the highest level of the game is just awful. I can't think of any other sport at the top pinnacle where you can be at that sport and not have a system in place. Like you go to cricket, you can review it on field. You play American football, the managers or the coaching staff can review an appeal. You go to tennis, which is probably one of the first sports that introduced it. You can review an umpire's decision, because yes, it is humans that are ultimately in charge of it, but humans make mistakes. And that's the whole point of having VAR in place, is to try and correct those. However, you go to the Everton game and we have 3 blatant penalties, all pretty much completely different scenarios. You've got someone getting tackled while he's on the ball. You've got a handball while the arm's out. And then you've got someone getting slide tackled down the back of his ankle. None of them are given as penalties. You then go to Liverpool at home, where they get the drop ball, but there's no fourth official interference apparently for that. But then when we come to this season, Brighton away, the fourth official is allowed to interfere in that decision. There's no consistency on that. You go to Bournemouth at home, where we get the second yellow, but VAR is not allowed to interfere with that. And there was a massive hoopla about that, because everybody, once you look at it again and you look at it through the slow motion cameras, he's won the ball and the Bournemouth player's gone over the top of our Bolly's leg. It's not a foul. It shouldn't be a yellow. It shouldn't be a foul. It should be possibly a drop ball, just to see what happened from there. You should be able to look at that decision, and the PGMOL should be able to look at that and say, yeah, this system's not working. We should be able to look at a second yellow card.
But so do you get Chris's point, Joe? He's saying you can't have the game would last like 5 hours if you kept doing that. Would you put like a limit that managers could chuck in a yellow flag kind of thing? Maybe
well, I mean, I know that Test cricket is definitely renowned for being long because it goes on 5 days, but you can review decisions that go on in T20 cricket. I'm pretty sure in international T20 cricket, you're allowed to review a decision. In tennis, you're allowed to review a decision, and it's pretty sharp. Like the way that their Hawkeye works, obviously that's just ball tracking and seeing how it works. But the way that they use it in cricket, you get a decision within like 2 or 3 minutes, and we still see a VAR decision gets dragged out for about 10 minutes. If the VAR is like watching every single slow motion angle, then they call over the referee to then look at it for every single slow motion angle. It should just be the referees that are on the pitch are one entity, and then VAR should be a completely different, independent, that is allowed to overrule a decision as long as it's had some kind of fair review, and it's not just, right, I've refereed this game and I've had an absolute stinker, so what's my punishment? Oh, I get to, it was like, who, I don't know the name of him, the fourth official for us in the Brighton game, who was overruling Rob Jones's decision.
Anthony Taylor.
Yeah, so he made that decision and he was like, right, I'm going to overrule it. Oh, by the way, yeah, you're going to have to send him off. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to send him off. Everyone then said, right, yeah, he won the ball. It shouldn't have been a second yellow at the very worst. The fact that you've given it as a foul is not fair. What was his punishment? He then gets to referee Liverpool versus Wolves the next weekend. There is no punishment. There's no consequence if a referee gets the wrong decision or doesn't interfere, or like the absolute howler where they said that an offside decision was correct when they ruled it offside, and they were like, oh no, he was miles onside, and they were like, well no, we're just going to play on anyway, it doesn't matter. There's no repercussions if you make a bad decision, because they're all mates and they all just want to make sure that they're all looking out for each other. And if you get sent to the monitor, it's very rare that a referee is going to have the backbone and stand up against the referees in VAR and say, oh no, I was right. So something just has to change. I don't want to blame VAR, but I feel like we're in a justifiable position to be blaming VAR and to try and make a change to it, because it is just completely inconsistent. I'm not saying it's unfair, it's just inconsistent. And to have that at the top level of any sport is a disgrace.
Do you get the counter argument, Carlos? Like,
Oh yeah, I agree
think it's if we win, no one cares. It's when we lose or draw because of it, that's when the bitterness comes out.
Yeah, I think look, I totally agree with what Lemmy's just said about the changes that need to happen. I think it needs to be a separate body of people who are doing the VAR that have got no links to the referees whatsoever, because the mates out there, some of them are mates, and like they've even said in the past that they've like, you know, a ref was having a hard time in some games, so we gave him a bit of, we gave him a bit of help, and you know, that shouldn't happen. It should be a separate body of people who have got nothing to do with the refs, so they can just overrun. I think VAR should be able to intervene at any point in a game. There should be these stupid rules about they can't intervene on yellows and stuff like that. They should be able to intervene anyway. I do actually think that was it Jones who made the decision in the Brighton game where he said Morgan Gibbs-White had got the ball but then changed it. I mean, I think in real time, like, it's easy for a ref to make that kind of error. Not so much an error, but like from what he saw at that speed, he might have thought that Morgan Gibbs-White did get the ball. But when you look at it slowed down, he got the ball, but he got a lot of man as well. Probably was a yellow. So like, I don't think he made a big error. And I didn't have any issue with the fourth official correcting him, because that's what they should do.
But
yeah, it's when they come in when they want. Yeah, when should they and when shouldn't they?
Anthony Taylor's seen as like a senior Premier League manager. So then all of a sudden Rob Jones is like, right, he's been doing this for years, so he must be right. And then just immediately goes off and gives it a yellow card. Whereas if that was if Morgan Gibbs-White wasn't on a yellow card and he won none of the ball at all and just went absolutely through him, he wouldn't be interfering and saying, oh, it should be a yellow card. You'd be getting VAR reviewing that and saying it's a potential red. So why can VAR not review that and say it's a potential second yellow? You can then have a look at that and then send him off.
Do you think it was a yellow? Do you think it was a yellow?
No.
You don't think it was a yellow?
No.
And to answer your question, Joe, the technical reason is because it was a yellow, they can't intervene on it a yellow, irrespective of if it results into the red card, which they were talking about changing after Bolly last year. Yeah, they were talking about changing and they didn't. So it's inconsistent.
This goes back to one of the points. You know, it is all subjective. Look at just now. I think it was a yellow. Lemmy thinks it wasn't a yellow. You know, it's subjective, isn't it? And this is the problem with VAR. It's humans' subjective interpretation of what's happened, and I don't know how we stop that from happening moving forward. It's a problem, isn't it? I think the main point I was trying to make is, yes, we are going to still blame VAR, but let's try and take games away from the officials to have an impact on it. Let's be more positive in games and be more attacking. Don't just go 1 up. Let's go 2 up. Let's go 3 up. I know it's easy said and done, but you know, at the weekend versus Fulham, we should never have approached the game like that. You know, let's be more attacking. Let's take it out of the hands of the official, so we don't need to have these conversations. If we were 3-0 up and there's a bad VAR decision, we still win. Do you know, that's the essence of what I was trying to say.
I think Matthew summarizes your point so well. He says West Ham last year we should have a penalty. I think it was on Nico Williams, if I remember rightly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. But we didn't care because we won. And
exactly.
That was a stone waller.
That's the main point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see what the chat said. The chat have gone. 55% are agreeing with you, saying yes, just win it on the pitch. 29% are still adamant the refs hate us. Solidarity with the 29%. And 16% are on the fence on this one. So interesting
Well, I'm taking
debate.
that. I'm done. See you later.
It always does. It always does spark some debate, this VAR stuff. But yes, I do agree. Even though I think they're corrupt as hell, I still think that win it on the pitch and then the argument stops. Okay, let's move on to our third segment. Again, please don't forget to hit the like button. If you are sitting there like a little lazy git and haven't bothered, it's completely free to do. Make sure you do it and subscribe as well if you are new. And we're going to move into Roberto's segment now, which I think I got it right, Rob. Musical chairs.
Yeah,
right?
musical chairman.
Chairman.
Yeah,
Okay.
so starting the
Chairman.
timer now. So obviously we've had a change at the top over the last couple of days. And if you're not interested in that, then this will only take another 4.5 minutes. But Torn Cartilage has stepped down as chairman of Forest, and you really don't want a torn cartilage in a football team. Sorry? Closer to the mic. So you really don't want a torn cartilage in a football team. But anyway, I don't get to make that joke ever again after this, so I thought I'd make it one last time. And the new chairman is, ta-da, Nicholas Randall KC. So I thought I'd use my segment just to try and delve into what's going on here and try and give my interpretation of why that's happened. So the first question is, does it actually matter who is chairman and what is their job? So just to be clear, that all of the staff of the club report into the chief operating officer, who, according to the website, is a gentleman called Paul Bell, right? So the chairman doesn't have any role in the day-to-day running of the club. And of course, the owner, we all know that the buck stops with Marinakis and he makes the key strategic decisions. So you kind of think, like, what is the chairman for? Now, I would say that the chairman should be a fan whose job it is to stand up to the ownership and represent us, right? And I think if they're not doing that, they're not doing their job. Now, so I actually watched, I'm a bit of a saddo. I watched all the interviews and I saw an interview with Nicholas Randall towards the end of our first season back in the Premier League. And he actually took over in 2017 from Fawaz Al-Hazawi, who was the judge, jury, and executioner. He was the owner and the chairman. So he'd been chairman for quite a long time. And Randall didn't hold back, saying that, in his words, the governance of the club was not fit for purpose, which means that in lawyer language, we'd done a lot of bad things. So he was basically saying, I'm here to clean up. And he was talking about his articles of faith and playing by the rules. About 3 months later, he was gone. And now that took me by surprise. And I was a little bit worried about that. And why? My explanation for it is the whole PSR debacle, right? So, you know, he is a lawyer. He's a KC. And he was telling us, I'm going to sort out the governance of this club. And then straight into it, he knew that we were going to get a points deduction. I get the feeling, and there are some rumors that he'd had a bust up with the ownership over this. It probably relates to whether we should have taken the money for Johnson before the deadline and the rest of it. But I see Randall stepping down is that he didn't want that on his record. He didn't want that on his watch because he would have found it very hard to square us getting a points deduction with him coming in to clean up after Al-Hazawi and putting some governance in. So he disappeared, which was disappointing. Now, the thing about Tom Cartilage is, in my view, he should never have been appointed. But I'm going to rate his performance and give him a score out of 10 anyway. But the reason he should never have been appointed, in case anybody doesn't know, not because he's not qualified, he is a very successful millionaire businessman. But he is the owner and CEO of the Handley House Group, which owns Benoy being the company which has done the City Ground master plan. So you've basically got somebody here who is a supplier to the club being the chairman. So I feel that's been a complete conflict of interest, because what happens if the redevelopment of the City Ground goes over budget? What happens if there's a delay? Is he going to ring himself to complain? So that is a clear conflict of interest. Now, I think that almost Tom himself didn't feel comfortable in the role and had a little bit of imposter syndrome because, as Wolf is keen to point out, every time he's interviewed, he tells us what a big fan he is and how long he's been going to the games and stuff, until it got rather boring. I was thinking, like, who's he trying to convince? Himself maybe. He is very corporate. My skin crawls when he talks about the fan engagement piece, which means talking to supporters, I guess. He seems to have been very connected with the Conservative Party. We had Rishi Sunak come down to the City Ground. He signed a strategic agreement with Ben Bradley. But, I think he didn't get off to a good start. We had the PSR breach under his watch. We had the tweet. So it seems like, I haven't gone over 5 minutes yet. It seems like he didn't control the messaging there. We had the Clattenburg appointment, which wasn't such a great idea. We had the whole debacle over the season ticket price hikes. I really don't like the way that they went about that, where they sold a spot on a waiting list and then they used that to justify putting the price up. And then the whole thing over Toten. They used that paid waiting list as a justification for moving to Toten. Finally, there seemed to have been a breakdown with communications over our landlord, which is the city council, right? So I was giving him about a 3 out of 10 6 months ago. But since then, I think the summer transfer window has been very good. We avoided the PSR breach, and he seemed to have done. The club seems to have formed some kind of bromance with Newcastle and with Lyon. Worked very well. We've apparently bought the freehold of the City Ground, which is massive for the future of the club. And we're going ahead with a 42,000 all-seater stadium. So I would say that this is the right time for Tom to step down. And I think, actually, surprisingly, my conclusion is that he can look back now with a sense of achievement and he can focus on just getting the City Ground expansion done. So I'm going to give him 6 out of 10 overall. I think that Randall is a safe pair of hands. Hopefully he will stand up to Marinakis a little bit and not be a yes man like his predecessor might have been a little bit too much to start off with. So my conclusion is 6 out of 10 for Tom Cartledge. Sorry, that was 6 minutes.
You in 6 minutes. I forgot my timer. I was trusting.
Yeah, no. Carl also had 6 minutes. Trust me, I do time my
points there.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about this because I want to get your boys' opinion on it. I think this is stupidity personified. I have him down as some of the chat was saying, the guy who cost us PSR after promising us that we weren't going to break PSR. Carlos, what's your take on this merry-go-round in the chairman?
I mean, I've been on here before, haven't I, talking about the fact that I don't think we're going to get any movement on the stadium improvements anytime soon. And this just smacks of incompetence behind the scenes. It's just every year there's just changes after changes, isn't there, behind the scenes? It can't be good. It's why are we having this turnover of people behind the scenes? And then we've gone back to Mr. Spiderhead as well. If you know, you know. I don't know. It's just a weird one, isn't it? Why have we gone back to him? Why is there such a turnover? What's going on behind the scenes? It's just, I don't know. It's just a bit of a worry. I think it backs up what I've been saying about Marinakis, and that is he's a bit of a cowboy. Yes, he got us promoted with some good decisions with Cooper and stuff, but we're getting shipping containers for stands. It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If we want to move forward as a club, facility-wise, we need to sell. It's not going to happen with Marinakis. He's a Del boy.
I don't agree with that. I don't. Hey, look how much money he's putting in.
We need a nice American consortium to come in, or some oil money to come in and buy us to really move this club forward.
Yeah, but that doesn't change anything, does it? Because look at Newcastle; they can't spend.
Yeah, but They've got people that know how to run a club. I don't think we do.
You're grimacing, Rob. You're grimacing big time.
Well, I think we found the one
I saw
Forest
a
fan that
general
looks like
full
Marinakis.
grimace tweet in the chat, messages in the chat. Go on.
What sort of can of worms have I opened here? I think Marinakis is a fantastic owner, but I think you need a kind of Nicholas Randall type figure, remembering that he is a barrister, right? You know, he's a Nick DeMarco, but like he's on the board,
it's
right?
not legal. This is running of a club.
No, but I mean, the thing is that you're hoping that he's going to bring the club into the sort of 21st century in terms of like playing by the rules.
Well, he didn't do that with PSR, did he?
Exactly. After he promised it.
Well, so but like I said in my,
you should never go back to an ex, and that's what he is. He's an ex.
Like I said in my 6-minute speech, I think that my interpretation is that he stepped down because he fell out with the ownership over what led to the PSR.
Okay, but whose fault was it? Which way round is that argument? Did Marinakis fall out with him, or did he fall out with Marinakis?
It's both, but I mean,
there's one consistency in all of the fallouts, isn't there? All the fallouts, there's one consistency, and that's Marinakis. With everybody,
we know that he is hot-headed. But so what? He puts his money in. He still gets decisions right. Yeah, he'll get, out of 100, he'll get 90 right and 10 wrong. That's business.
Is he putting a lot of money in there?
Of course he is. He's wiped out 50 million of the debt, no questions asked.
For a Premier League club, that's not much.
Yeah, what about during COVID? He saw us through COVID. He paid for it and funded it. He's put a lot in. Don't forget what he did in the Championship. There's a lot of money he's put in, and he doesn't always sing and dance about it. That's the difference. I'll argue back with you about my boy all day long, mate. I would rather have Marinakis in than someone like Levy from Spurs in there, who is running it just like a complete business and wants concerts and stuff in there, and then spends nothing.
They're
on
a
the
really
team.
well-run club, though. Spurs.
They're not, though. I think they're either first or second most in-debt club in the world.
But that'll probably be from the stadium, though, won't it?
Still, the debt is the debt.
But that'll get paid off through all the extra commercial stuff they can do, like the NFL,
but it's costing
and
them
the
on the
concerts
pitch
and all that kind of stuff. They'll eventually be a very profitable club. It's a long-term thing, isn't it?
But do we care about the profitability, or do we care about what's happening on the pitch? That's the whole debate here, isn't it?
Both.
Yeah, so Spurs are spending too much off the pitch and not getting enough on, where Marinakis is pumping the money into the team, in my opinion.
That's not Marinakis' money, though. That's the Premier League money that we get given on the players.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have got to that stage.
No. I'm not having that. I'm not having that. We get like 110 million from Sky Sports, but the remaining 50 or 60 million comes from NF Investments, which is Marinakis' company. So we absolutely could not survive without him, and we would not have got to the Premier League without him.
Joe, what's your take on this one? Let's bring it back to the chairman debate, right? Not Marinakis.
Yeah, I was about to say
this whole Randall Tom change. I mean, I don't like either of them. I'll be honest with you.
I know that we took a bit of a diversion, but I did take that opportunity to then do a quick 30-second Google for a quiz. I felt like this would be a good quiz here. Out of these three clubs, who can name the owners of Bournemouth, Fulham, and Brentford?
Khan at Fulham.
Sorry?
Khan at Fulham.
Yeah.
Who are the other two you wanted?
Bournemouth and Brentford.
Bournemouth's the American old guy. I can't remember his name.
Basically,
no idea.
You don't know and you don't care because
I got 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3.
They are clubs that are quite happy to keep on paving the way and like make on incremental steps forward. They are, well, I'd say definitely Fulham and Bournemouth. They're yo-yo clubs who have been up and down. This is a thing that was in our group chat. Why are we not up with those two? Because they were always bouncing up and down and then would have the best team of the Championship that automatically propelled themselves forward. Whereas we got Marinakis, who, yes, is very hot-headed and, yes, makes a lot of firings and hirings, but was then also willing to put the money where his mouth was and got us where we were. And then when we got promoted, all of a sudden we had to absolutely panic and buy 30 players. And I don't think any other owner would have done that. We would have probably taken the Luton prerogative of trying to build a very good championship team, which seems to be working out really well for them this season.
That is a really good point, Lemmy, because if people remember back far enough, just remember what Irving Scholar did last time we got promoted. He sold Kevin Campbell and Van Hooydonk went on strike. So that's what it can look like.
Biggest mistake of our history, well, in my lifetime.
Yeah, but back to the owner, which was the chairman, which was Rob's actual point. I do agree that it was probably time to make a change, especially since there was so many conflicts of interest with what we were going to do with the stadium. I know we've kind of gone around that roundabout so many times. It just felt wrong that we were looking at stadium options and our chairman was kind of in that field. So it was always going to be pushed towards one kind of direction, which was the direction that 95 to 99% of the fan base was going to be against. So we were always going to be fighting a losing battle, but I feel like getting rid of him was the right decision. But bringing in the previous chairman, who we then got rid of before, I agree with Carlos. I think there should have been more of a outreach to try and bring someone else in and do an actual like any kind of business. You're just going to try and open it up, especially for a high level position. You're going to want to try and bring in the best that's available and not just someone that you know has done the job before and do it immediately when you're going to swap them out.
They've done that with Russ Wilson, you could argue, couldn't you? And he brought in what's his number 2 called? Mella? I forgot his name.
Can I take you to something Lemmy said there, which is we haven't got rid of either chairman. We didn't get rid of Randall, he stepped down, and we didn't get rid of Tom, he stepped down. So
and he's on the board, Rob, to add to this whole conflict of interest. I mean, does he get a veto on the board when it comes to...
He could recuse himself from anything voting about the future of the ground, which would be appropriate. It's just not appropriate, these chairmen. But, you know, neither chairman has been sacked. And they both stepped down for different reasons. I see Randall coming back, if there's been some kind of reconciliation there, as a positive thing, and it brings stability. So I
just don't like him. I don't like him.
Well, he's not exactly a laugh a minute. You know,
I can't get past the whole I promise we won't break PSR thing. And he's a KC. That's the KC thing.
So he was obviously overruled on that, and that's why he stepped down. In my interpretation, not in any legally binding sense, but that's how I interpret it. So
don't promise it then.
Yeah, but in the end, if I think he's resigned the first time around over a point of principle. So fair enough.
He lied.
What? Okay, careful. Remember, he's a KC. Who lied? What?
Okay, he allegedly lied. Is that better? Oh my god. Well, he did. He said we won't. I promise we won't break PSR, and we broke PSR.
Well, at that stage, it hadn't happened yet, so that's not a lie. It's
okay. It's a broken promise. Then I'll retract it to a broken promise.
Be very careful. He is a KC.
I can care less.
You'll have to get Nick DeMarco to get you out of jail if he comes out.
But I don't know.
My point on this, I think it's probably just best to say I know that we joined this group about 5 minutes before we went live, and you said, Lemmy, do you want to go first? And I was like, I really don't mind. I'm quite happy for anybody else to go first. In hindsight, I'm really glad that I went first and not Rob. Otherwise, I feel like it would have been a lot more.
A little bit personal. A little bit personal. That's all right. We're all friends.
Nothing personal. It's just the topic, I guess.
Well, let's see what the chat has said. The question was, are you happy with Nick back in charge? 46% of you have said yes. 54% of you are saying no. So quite split there, but more so on the nose. And 00 saying, to be fair, Randall was assured by the Premier League that we'd be okay with PSR. I mean, you'd expect them to know their own books and not what there's, the Premier League are going to say to them. So, okay, interesting 3 segments there. Let's move on and look ahead to the Chelsea match. Quick reminder, do hit that like button. We got over 300 of you in here, 95 likes. So we need 5 more likes. We should be on at least 100 likes. And let's jump in and have a look at some of these teams. And guys, remember these teams because I want you to pick which one you prefer best. And because my thing froze earlier, it's not bloody working. So Carlos, yours is coming up first, mate, just because it's alphabetical. So for those of you listening on the podcast, let me talk you through Carlos's team for Chelsea. He has gone with a 4-4-1-1 formation with Sells in goal, Moreno, Murillo, Milenkovic, and Einar, MMMA. And then he's gone for Jota, Ward-Prowse, Anderson, Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White in the hole with Chris Wood up front. So, Carlos, you did mention earlier that you don't like this 4-4-1-1 thing against Fulham.
Let me correct you there. Let me correct you.
Have you gone for it against Chelsea?
That's at home. That's at home.
I'm sorry. Before you do, I got a couple of super chats. Sorry, apologies. Okay. Apologies. Chris says, "Thank you so much for the £2. We're whining about Stonewall f-ups, not nothing." Exactly. I do agree with you, Chris. Going back to that point, that when we're complaining, we're not complaining about 50-50s and things like that. So spot on. And then Chris with another £2 says, "This Carl dude should stick to Fortnite."
I don't play Fortnite.
He's not good at Fortnite, mate.
I don't play Fortnite.
It's Call of Duty, which he'll be on straight after this. We'll have the link up for you at the end. Thank you so much, Chris. Apologies. I did see him and then the topic moved on. Thank you so much for the super chats, buddy. Okay. They're calling you a flip-flop in the chat, Carlos. Explain your team selection here.
It's not a flip-flop. When I was talking about the formation, I was talking about a home against Fulham. We're playing away to Chelsea. You know, Chelsea are red hot at the moment. Cole Palmer is on fire. They are scoring for fun. So we do need to take that into account. But you know, this is the shape we played against Liverpool, but with slight changes. I'm going for Jota and Hudson-Odoi on the wings, rather than the weird Dominguez and Anderson on the wings that kind of like just play narrow.
Wait, you calling Dominguez weird or the formation weird? You kind of said
playing Dominguez on the wing is weird.
Okay.
He's not a winger. So, you know, this is a formation that takes into account Chelsea's form. So we've got like something in midfield to combat that, but also on the break, because we're playing away from home. We can't go super attacking away to Chelsea. We've got to be sensible. So on the break, we've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, we've got Jota, we've got pace on the wings, we've got Morgan Gibbs-White creating things in the middle. We've also got Anderson in the middle, who's a terrier, chasing everything down, and we've got the experience of Ward-Prowse, and then we've got the goal-scoring machine, Wood up front. So I feel that's a compromise between holding Chelsea and hitting them hard on the break with pace. And the back five speaks for itself. I know there's arguments to play Miguel in goal, but I don't know if it's the right time away to Chelsea.
Boys, what do you reckon to it? Do you get his almost a pragmatic approach? Does it make much sense? Let me kick us off on it.
I feel like there is like a few decisions that I probably make, but we'll then get to that when my team comes up. I don't think that this team would play as a 4-4-1-1. It just wouldn't. Yeah, Jota is a winger or a striker. Hudson-Odoi is a winger or like more of a central attacking midfielder sometimes. So just asking them to all of a sudden just play left mid, right mid isn't going to work. If you're just going to say, right, this is how we want to set up, because that's how we played against Liverpool. That's how we set up against Fulham, which was with 4 central mids playing across that bank of 4 in the midfield. So to then just expect the same result, but by playing more attacking players on the wing, isn't going to work. But at the same time, I can't really dispute any of the starting 11 that he's picked, because when we get to my 11, it will become more abundantly clear.
Okay, Rob, what are you saying?
Right,
Before you do, let me. Sorry, Rob. Just because Stuart's asked so kindly. Richard's asked so kindly with the £2. Didn't anybody read my message? Richard, that's the first super chat I've had of you, buddy. I've been reading the messages in the chat as well. So thank you for the £2. And yes, I promise we are reading your messages. and the chat are responding as well. So thank you so much. Go on, Rob, on Carlos's team.
This looks to me more like the regular 4-2-3-1 than any kind of 4-4-1-1. I'm really worried about that being a bit of a lightweight midfield. I'm not convinced by either Jota or Hudson-Odoi in a defensive capacity, and neither Ward-Prowse or Anderson behind that. I just think you've not got a lot of tackling ability there, I've actually gone for that formation, but I've picked players that can play those positions. That looks to me like the 4-2-3-1, which I think is incredibly gung-ho for away at Chelsea after, last game, Cole Palmer scored 4 goals in the first half against Brighton. So, honestly, I think Chelsea are probably the form team in the Premier League at the moment. And, they're one of the sort of 4 category A away games with like Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal. I think those 4 are out ahead of like risk factor. So I just think that team could get, you could ship 2 goals in the first 15 minutes with that team. Nothing against those players, but I would be introducing them much later on into the game.
Oh, that's your rebuttal to that. Too weak in the midfield, they're telling you.
Hey, it's all subjective, isn't it? We've all got opinions. It's good. I'm just glad people have got opinions on this podcast, unlike others.
Are you saying, because someone's asking in the chat, could that turn into a 4-5-1 defensively?
Yeah,
could that be what happens?
Yeah, I think Lemmy and I think even Rob mentioned that Morgan Gibbs-White, lots of energy, runs around a lot, can tackle, but obviously there was the rash one versus Brighton. So, Morgan Gibbs-White would drop back. That's what a 4-4-1-1 is. The person in that one does drop into the midfield. That's what they're there for if needed. So it can easily turn into a 5-man midfield. Yeah.
Okay. So that's Carlos's team. 48% of you would go with it. 52% would not go with it. So, okay, quite 50-50 there. Not bad. I don't think you'll be a million miles off, if I'm honest with you, mate. But if some people thought that was attacking, Joe, let's talk through your team. Here comes Lemmy's team for you ladies and gents. He is going with a 4-3-3. He's gone with Sells in goal. He's gone for the usual back four, MMA. And then in midfield, he's gone with Ward-Prowse, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Anderson. And then he's gone Jota Hudson-Odoi on the wing and Cristiano Woodinho up front. Joe, that is pretty damn attacking. Talk us through it while I put a poll up to see what the chat think of your team.
So to then go off of the back of what I was saying with Carlos's team, I've picked the exact same starting 11. I don't have
as well, haven't you?
Exactly the same starting 11, but I'm not going with the prerogative where I'm expecting Jota and Hudson-Odoi to be dropping back and going into like a bank of 4, and then Gibbs-White's going to be playing more of an attacking role with Wood then sat in front of him. My idea of this, and I know whoever's watching the stream, it would probably look like Gibbs-White playing more of an attacking midfield in front of Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, I can be bothered to push him back.
My idea is to have them as a bank of 3 where any of them can make that attacking move forward, and the other 2 will then be in the covering role. I don't want Gibbs-White just more as the attacking midfielder. Like everyone said, we want to see Anderson as an 8, but at the same time, he's more of a 10. This gives him the opportunity to be able to do that. Gibbs-White can also do the same. Ward-Prowse, I don't think any of us would really pick him as a 6 or an 8. So I'd want to be able to see him be able to make a progression run forward, or be able to do more attacking runs forward, and not just be reliant on having to be a 4-2-3-1 where he has to stay back and just rely on the wingers, the striker and the cam to do any attacking work. So I'd like to think this gives the midfield a chance to put in the energy, put in the pressure, especially down that middle of the park, which was completely obsolete against Fulham at home, as we saw by the donut heat map. This should completely nullify that. I would still expect Jota and Hudson-Odoi to be able to come back and do some tracking back if one of them's gone forward along the right-hand side. don't expect Hudson-Odoi to automatically be running forward. I just feel like this is as close as we're going to be able to get to at the moment as our best 11. I do agree that it is against Chelsea, who's a red-hot team at the moment in the league. And I felt like if I went with a 4-4-2, similar to how we went last week, I would be booed off the stream and never be invited back. I just think that this team, I know what Rob's concern is, especially with all the goals that Chelsea have been putting in. But, I mean, Brighton haven't been, like, absolutely scared of scoring goals, but we limited them to a degree. I don't think we've got too much worries defensively, especially with Milenkovic and Murillo. I just don't feel concerned at all about conceding goals from open play with those two. I feel like we've seen with Einar and Moreno, they can cover the best wingers that we've got. So my main concern is trying to cover out Cole Palmer, which is why I'd want to have a bank of 3 sat in front of the defensive 4 and just have someone always covering Cole Palmer, try and shut him out of the game, and the other 2 midfielders can then do whatever they want and be a bit more free.
I'll come to you, Rob, because Carlos basically, as I didn't even notice, has picked the same 11. I assume your issues are the same. Does that a few in the chat are saying they still don't trust Ward-Prowse?
I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see that team, albeit without Gibbs-White, at home last week against Fulham.
Yeah, a few saying that
not in this game. Now, by the way, you have to go into this with a game plan, and in my game plan, on about 65 minutes, that's who I would like to be on the pitch. That is exactly who I would like to be on the pitch. Maybe Elanga somewhere in there, but that's give or take one player. But after 65 minutes, not for the first half hour, because I think that is potentially going to get overrun.
Which was just to reboot that was my agreement going into the Fulham game, where we then went behind after 50 minutes, and then we basically just brought on every attacking player that we had on the bench and couldn't create anything because we'd dug ourselves too deep into a hole. So I'd like to avoid us falling into that again.
Carlos, can you see an argument for Yates playing in this game ahead of maybe Ward-Prowse?
No. Nope.
Not
for me.
No. He had a cracking game there last season.
Everyone will say, "Oh, this is the kind of game we need Yates to be playing," but no, not for me. I think we're a worse team when he's on the pitch, to be honest. But going back to this team, I feel like it's a little bit light in midfield. I think it's like Rob said, this is the kind of formation that you want at home, and that's what I was saying in my subject piece earlier. This is a dangerous shape to play to Chelsea away. If Cole Palmer sees this team, he's going to be licking his lips, isn't he?
Okay.
I feel like it's just going to get over a little bit.
To rebuke that, Carlos, Cole Palmer is going to see the exact same team sheet, regardless of if it's my team sheet or yours.
Different shape, though, isn't it? It's a different shape.
He won't see that. He sees the team sheet. They don't put it out
when he gets on the pitch and he sees, them big gaps in midfield, he'll be like, "Yes, another hat trick incoming."
Well, what's interesting is the vote is identical. So, chat, you are consistent. 48% of you would go with that team. 52 would not. So identical, sitting that they picked the starting 11. By the way, they don't get to see each other's team before the stream. I think it makes it more fun. Richard with another £2 super sticker. Thank you so much, Richard. Much appreciated, my bro. And then let's go over to Rob's team. And this one is quite a bit different. So let's bring Rob's team up. Now, he's gone for the same formation as Carlos in a 4-4-1-1. But Nicky will be pleased. He's gone for Miguel in goal. He's gone for MMA, of course, at the back. And then in midfield, he's gone for Dominguez on the right. He's gone for Ward-Prowse and Yates in the middle. Anderson on the left. Morgan Gibbs-White in the 10. And then he's brought back Taiwo Awani. Jessica will not be happy. Nikki will be happy in the chat. I'll get a poll up to see who else is happy in the chat. Do you like Rob's team or not? Rob, talk us through this team.
Right, so everybody calm down. This is a squad game we're in, and you go into it with a game plan. So this is the team that I want to start the match with. It's not the one that I want to see the game out with. Okay. So this is the return of the blob, right? This is basically what we did against Liverpool. We basically need to do again, which is whenever somebody, in particular Palmer, but, you know, they've got two other very dangerous players there. Sancho's playing well. Madueke is playing very well. And Nicholas Jackson is looking good up front as well. So their front four is very, very dangerous, right? So we have basically got one job for the first half, which is stay in the game. Stay in the game. And then you do the same thing we did at Liverpool, which is you sneak on Hudson-Odoi, who's obviously got to score the winner because he's the ex-Chelsea player, and you sneak on Elanga and you sneak on Wood because Awoniyi's going to be tired.
Why can't you just sub them on normally?
Right. Well, you can bring all three on in one go, or you can use the substitution phases a little bit more intelligently, like Nuno has been doing recently. Now, I've also gone for Miguel in goal because Matt Sells' left arm is too short. Right? If Matt Sells is in goal, Cole Palmer is going to score in the top right-hand corner at least 3 times. So I am the only one that's put Yates in the team. I want Yates to follow Palmer around like a ghost, like a shadow. And I just give Yates one piece of advice, which is just don't get booked. If he gets booked after 5 minutes, he can't then do his job. The only other thing I think we've overlooked perhaps is Ward-Prowse set pieces. I want Ward-Prowse to play the entire 95 minutes of this game because at some point, Ward-Prowse is going to do a corner or a free kick or something that's going to give us a match-winning goal. And we need to get the best out of him. And the final thing, Awoniyi, I just want him there as a bit of a battering ram. If you're going to have Chris Wood from the start, you probably need somebody like Elanga, but you've got to have somebody who's got like the pace and the bustle to at least make Chelsea think twice. Now, I haven't watched so much of them this year, by the way. Like last season under Posh, they played a very high line. And Laurie asked, how did Cooper set up against them? You know, we hit them on the break. We got to win with like a Awoniyi to Elanga, a Awoniyi assist to Elanga, right? So I think you've got to have somebody on there just to make them think twice. And I think Awoniyi can put in a good 45-minute shift, and I would have Wood come on for the second half. You've got 2 strikers. Use them both. Use them both. But which one do you start with? I say Awoniyi, just to be a handful. So there you go. Very different.
I'm just reading the chat, and Nikki and Jess are absolutely cracking me up. Nikki, as soon as he saw the first person that came out, backed your team. Jessica's like, what are you on, Rob? There's a lot of arguments going on about Yates,
what have you got
whether
to
or not
lose?
you're crazy that he won't get booked.
What? Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to talk over you, but what have you got to lose putting Miguel in this game? Put him in this one. Oh, come on.
3 points. Go on, Lemmy. What are you saying to this team? So it is different to yours. He's got Yates in where you had Anderson in that middle. He's dropped. Let's not forget he's dropped Callum Hudson-Odoi here. He's kind of let that one go through quietly. But what are your thoughts on it, Lemmy?
Oh, you're going for me because I can quite quickly pick this apart. Well, not quickly. I could do this for about 5-10 minutes. It's quite enjoyable.
Right, do it in 3.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'll go with the personnel change right at the back and right at the top. Right at the back, dropping Sells for Carlos Miguel. I feel like that's just a popularity decision. I don't think that's actually what you'd want to do, especially since we've seemed to have decided who we want to be picking as our starting goalkeeper. You then look at the top and you're dropping Chris Wood, who's our top goal scorer, after then going on a bit of a rant and saying that we're not scoring enough goals. You then want to pick someone who's not our top goal scorer and has been injured for about 35 to 40% of our games. Then say that we want to go back to this system of a 4-4-1-1, which worked very well against Liverpool, which I agreed with. And then we tried to play something very similar against Fulham, and then we lost. And then everyone said that Nuno had an absolute stinker and it was all his fault, which I disagreed with. And now we're saying that we want to go back with this again. And I just feel like I'm all of a sudden going down the version of what's the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing again and expecting a different result. We tried to play something very similar to this against Fulham at home, and we lost. And so we're going to say we're going to do the same thing again at Chelsea, who have scored, 7 goals in the last 2 games, and expect a completely different result. I feel like this team works if you do keep a clean sheet, which was my entire argument on the Grumpy Old Red stream at the weekend. But as soon as this team lets in a goal, we are going to hit panic stations. We're going to hit the nuclear button, and we're then all of a sudden just going to go into a meltdown, especially away. And it's just not going to work. If we were miraculously going to be able to keep a clean sheet up until about 70 minutes, that's fine. But I just don't think that's going to work, especially against Cole Palmer, who you want to have Ryan Yates running about, marking him, where he's going to get yellow carded within the first 3 minutes, probably. And then he's going to be having to coax that for about 80 minutes. So, yes, this is probably one of the decisions that I was toying up with, but I just thought there's no way that we'd want to set up with this again, because if we do go behind, we're then playing Cooper ball all over again, where I might as well stop watching as soon as we're 1-0 down.
Ooh, fair point. All right, Carlos, what you saying? Before you do, just a quick shout out to Sharky with the £2. He goes, don't know if I dare watch Sunday, off to church. Well, make sure you pray. Make sure you pray, Sharky, because this one is going to be a tough one. And don't worry, guys, my team and the predicted team will be out tomorrow. You know, none of this amateur stuff. I'll show you what Nuno will go with tomorrow on the video. Carlos, what are you saying to this? Because again, your team selection is very different.
Well, you know, me and Rob were just on the same page, aren't we? You know, with the shape. You know, it's just it's the right shape for the game. It's just different personnel, isn't it? Lemmy's already covered the goalkeeping thing. I know there's someone in the chat who keeps saying, like, when is the right time, but I just don't feel like it's the right time to swap against Chelsea.
Do you think he's been good enough, Sells? Do you think he's been good enough? There's been no real calamities.
I think he's been all right. I think he hasn't cost us anything, has he, this season?
If he was 2 to 4 inches taller, would those balls have been saved? You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, maybe. Bad positioning for that free kick, wasn't it? I think he's been all right. He's not been Turner, has he?
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't be against Carlos giving a shot at some point. I think at some point he needs to, but I'm not sure if this is the right game. The back four's the same, and then it's the same shape, isn't it? I wouldn't play a Wanyee. I'm just not impressed with him this season at all. But I get what Rob's saying. Put him on for a half and see what kind of problems he can cause. So I get where he's coming from. It's obviously going to be quite a narrow midfield, isn't it, with the Anderson and Dominguez there. It's not mine's a similar same shape, but with more, you know, with Callum Hudson-Odoi and Jota providing a bit more width. Whereas I don't think Anderson are going to give you too much width. It's more of a containing midfield, isn't it? They're not wingers.
Oh, Rob shaking his head.
But Anderson.
That's what happened with this shape against Liverpool. They didn't really give us any width, did they?
No. But Anderson can put in a perfectly decent cross from the left, and Dominguez played quite a few games in the 4-2-3-1 as the right-sided.
He's not right-sided midfielder.
I know, but he has at least played that position. He has at least played against Man U at home last season. He played that position. Put in the didn't he? And he scored as well. So look about Miguel, right? The thing with Sells is he is a 6 out of 10 keeper every game, guaranteed, right?
Yes.
Now, coming after Turner, that is a miracle. He's the chosen one, right? But basically, I can't remember a single game where I'm thinking like we would have, you know, we wouldn't have won that without Sells. I can't remember a single game. You want somebody who's going to be worth points to you, not just basically do the, you know, the basics right. So is that
did he
Miguel?
cost points? Did he cost points?
Is that Miguel? Is that Miguel? You only find out by playing him, right? Now, I think that Miguel might just have a little bit of magic about him. But, you know, if you throw him into a game like this, there's a chance he could be man of the match on Sunday and we could get an amazing result. There is zero chance that Matt Sells will be man of the match on Sunday. I'd love to be wrong, by the way, but you know, you just can't see that he's not going to drop a clanger. He's not going to drop a clanger, but you know, being better than Matt Turner is not a claim for greatness, right? because that applies to just about every manager every goalkeeper in the Premier League, right? It's a pretty low bar being better than Matt Turner.
Carlos did drop a massive clanger against Newcastle with the first involvement in the game.
Yeah, all right. Well, Sells nearly threw the ball in his own goal against Liverpool. So, you can...
He nearly did, but he didn't.
Yeah, all right. So he's lucky.
Carlos
he's
did
lucky.
parry it to
we have
Newcastle
to find
player.
out.
Then he was man of the match.
Right. We have to find out over the next 5 to 10 games whether Miguel is going to be a long-term improvement from Sells or whether he's just another number 2 goalkeeper. Because if he isn't markedly better than Sells, we need to bring in a keeper in the January transfer window, whether it's Kelleher or whoever else, right? But you need to resolve this question. Can Miguel offer something better than Sells? My argument is possibly.
I think that's a fair point, but I've got to interrupt you because Jess has put a super chat in for £5 saying, Rob, you're going to cost me a fortune to interrupt whenever you speak no sense, she says. Thank you so much, Jessica. Sorry, I should have brought that up earlier to interrupt away.
It's not good. You can't do that.
Yeah, this is the polite stream. This is the mature stream. Yeah. Chris says, my anniversary on Sunday. Just hope it's not the same type of bloodbath as it was 17 years ago. Happy anniversary for Sunday, buddy. Okay, so those are the teams. 50% of you went with Rob's team. They said they would, and 50 wouldn't. So to be honest, across all 3 of the teams, it's been quite close. And then I put a poll up. Would you start Sells or Miguel? 77% of you would start Miguel and 23% would start Sells. Sharky with the £5 says, last time I went to church, I had a bad accident. Got my finger trapped in the wedding ring. I was wondering where that was going. I need to read this out in my head before I say them out loud. But fair enough, Sharky. Good dad joke there, buddy. Appreciate the £5. Thank you so much. Okay, boys, let's finish this up with our predictions. And chat, get your predictions in ahead of the Chelsea match. So, Carlos, kick us off as you're next to me there. What are you saying?
I think we've got a really good chance against Chelsea. I know they're in form, they're scoring lots of goals, but our strength at the moment is our defence. We're pretty solid out. We've got Murillo and Milinkovic, who are absolute animals at the back. So I'm going to say I'm calling a win. I think we win.
Wow.
3-2 Forest.
3-2. We're going to score 3 goals in a game after you said your whole spiel was about us not scoring. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna take it out of the hands of VAR and the officials. That's what we're going to do.
Clip him, chat.
3-2.
Okay. Joe, what are you saying?
I mean, I'm quite happy that Carlos has said that we're going to score 3 goals playing that formation that he's decided to pick. So that's fair play. I don't want to be Callum Hudson-Odoi or Diogo Jota on that day because they're going to be running by the seat of their pants if they're going to have to defend for their lives, but also contribute to score 3 goals. I'm going. I do agree with the sentiment that there's going to be more goals that we've scored, though. But I just feel like our defense is going to be more sure than what Chelsea have faced previously. But what we have seen is Chelsea are prone to letting goals. So I'm going with a 2-1 to Forest.
To Forest. Okay. I don't think we've lost to them since we've been back at Stamford Bridge, have we? I think we drew 2-2 and 1-0. I can't remember. Yeah. And Taiwo scored 2 of those, didn't he? Or did he score all 3? No, 2 of them, yeah. And Elanga the other. So, Rob, what are you saying?
Well, I'm usually the most pessimistic, but I think Nuno will set up defensively. I think if Chelsea score first, we're capable of getting back into it. I think if we score first, we're well capable of throwing it away. So I'm going for a 1-1.
A 1-1. Okay.
I think Liverpool were in just as good form as this when we went and beat them. So we've shown that we can do it. So you can just forget about stupid Fulham. I think we are well capable of getting a point from this game, even with the form they're in. But as Nuno says, we have to compete.
Solutions. I would say they probably have one of the worst goalkeepers in the Premier League in Sanchez. There's so many mistakes in him. There really is. So that's where we got to target. But I'll talk about it in my preview tomorrow. Okay, that brings us to the end of the show. I want to thank you guys, especially in the chat, for sitting there, getting all your comments in. It's been very lively in there. I want a massive shout out to Lemmy, to Rob, and of course to Carlos as well for making up the panel. Carlos is going to be live now. Well, about 5 minutes, Carlos.
Yeah, I've just actually kicked off the stream already, so it should be on in the next minute or so.
Do us a massive favor. I've just put his link in the chat. Go show him some love or abuse. I don't mind which one. If you can go subscribe to Carlos's channel there, it's pinned in the chat for you guys as well. So take a quick second, go show a fellow Forest fan some love, and just check how crap he is at Call of Duty. Maybe Fortnite, according to some. So go show him some love there. Subscribe to him. He'll be live on there as well. We'll see you tomorrow on my preview. There will also be exclusive content as well tomorrow night for the Patreon members, where we will be doing a preview with our mate from Chelsea Blue Brothers. So make sure you look out for that one as well. Until then, enjoy your evening. Go and watch Man United fall apart as they're still losing 3-2 to Porto after being 2-0 up. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all for watching. Come on, you Reds.
You Reds.